Welcome to the Central Connecticut Intergroup Speaker Meeting. My name is Deanna and I am an alcoholic.
Hi,
Hi, Deanna.
Alcoholics Anonymous Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have asked Joe to read how it works.
Hi, everybody. My name's Joe. I'm an alcoholic. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They're naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these, we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which is suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What in order? I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we are alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thank you. Could everyone please help me welcome our speaker, Eileen?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Eileen, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Eileen.
I could start by saying that I came from a quote-unquote normal family. I had both parents growing up. There was no mental illness. There was no physical abuse. We were not rich, but we were not poor. I had food, and I had a shelter. I still earned my seat at this table right here. I have no excuses, none of those telltale, because of this or that. I just remember growing up, I am the youngest of three kids, and I feel like I was kind of an afterthought. I remember growing up as a kid, I used to think I was adopted because I didn't think I was wanted, and then I realized, wait, adopted kids are wanted. Their parents actually choose them. So I decided I wasn't adopted. Growing up, I was always trying to be heard and be seen. Being the youngest, I'm not saying it's not anything against my parents. It's simply what happens is what parents, you have the first child, it's a big deal. The second was a boy, and now I'm the third. And I believe my mother really wished that I had been a boy, which explains the fact that I was a complete tomboy growing up. But I was always trying to get noticed, and it just seems like that I wasn't noticed. And I think that's a typical third child thing, though. It's not that big of a deal. But as I was getting older, I kept pushing and pushing, and always had to be the best at something, always wanted to be number one, and I was really excelled in math, and I was good at music, but it was never enough. I just felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I really was. So I was always that. I always, had to be the loudest, the funniest, the best at this, and yet I felt miserable on the inside. And then in junior high school, I got my first taste of alcohol, and then all of a sudden everything was better. I was prettier, I was more liked, and I had friends, and they seemed to like me too. Of course, they were drinking too, so it progressed worse in school. There was definitely some incidences where, like a couple of school dances that I really don't have a lot of a memory of. But I managed to get out of school. All my friends were a year older than me, so I graduated high school a year early, just to get out. And I said I was going to work for a year and then go to college. And I got lucky. I got into a program where I got my dream job at a very young age. And I was able to work 25 years in my dream job. And I did very well at it, but then towards the end, the late nights started becoming later, and the mornings I started getting into work later. And I started out as an employee of a company, and then I found out in my career is I could be a contractor. So, and I would get, because I would get bored. I do believe there's a part of me that I do have a little ADHD, because I will get bored easily. And so I would, as a contractor, I could work 6 months, a year. And by the time they're getting sick of my attitude and my stupid coming in late and not coming in at all, well, the contract ended. So I never lost a job. The contract simply ended. And this was what I was telling myself in my head. And finally, it just got to the point. I did leave Connecticut in 25 years ago. And I went to another state. And that's when I, did a lot of my career. And I got married. Married somebody that was my complete opposite, that was not an alcoholic, had the same type of job as me, but he was a complete nerd, and I was not. I was a complete troublemaker. I thought that opposites would work out, and it didn't work out. But we had a very amicable divorce. But then I got mixed up with somebody who was a little more like me, and things went downhill fast. Got to the point in Michigan, I got just not only with alcohol, dry goods were definitely a part of my story, and they kind of went together like peanut butter and jelly, it went from bad to I lost one job, and then I simply did not even want to try to get another, and I waited till unemployment ran out, and then it got to a point where the person I was living with, it was not a good situation at all. So I called my father back in Connecticut, and my father and my brother came all the way for a long drive and picked me up and took me back to Connecticut. And that was in 2007. And I first thing I did is found an AA meeting, and I stayed sober for a couple of years, and then I went out and I stayed sober for a few more years, and then I went out, and now I got over 10 years sobriety. And in my first year of this chunk of sobriety, a lot happened, and I hit a rock bottom emotionally. But I didn't drink. I wanted to, but I didn't, because I knew that drinking was not going to make anything go away. It was only going to make matters worse. I had been in and out of the program long enough to know all the things not to do. But my head still, wanted to do otherwise, because that's what I've been doing my entire life. So about a year into this sobriety, somebody got me to listen to a minister or whatever, and I heard this, and it changed my life completely, because I never liked myself my entire life. I spent my whole life trying to be good at something so that I could be something that I never really believed inside that I was. So when I heard this, is he started talking about, and people know me by this, so everyone will know who I am, that he went to somebody's house and he saw some artwork on the wall, and he looked at this one artwork and he thought, just splashes of paint all over it. And the guy said to him, "Oh, you like that piece of art?" And he said, "That's okay." And he says, "Well, it's worth $1 million because it's a Picasso." And he thought, wow, that really is a nice piece of work of art. But with that is, he decided that the art is based on who painted it, and that I am created by the greatest artist in the universe, is the Almighty God. When I got that through my thick head, and I just had to keep telling myself over and over again, God does not make garbage. God does not make garbage. Because I spent my whole life thinking God made me a piece of garbage, and how arrogant am I? And now I know that. Now I know that my way of thinking was definitely sent me in the wrong way. So I try to tell other friends of mine that have that issue. I know when people are suffering, I just say, remember that you are a Picasso. You are a Picasso. And that's, sometimes I tell them, I am a Picasso. I always said that if I ever decide to get a tattoo, I'm going to get it somewhere on my body, and it's going to say painted by, the greatest artist in the universe, the Almighty God. And but I think God would say, no, you don't need to do that. So, but once I started getting my gratitude on, then I could really sink my teeth into this program. Then I started to, it's like I saw my entire world in a different light. The last 10 years of my life, I was just talking about this the other day, the last 10 years of my life have been the best years I've ever had in my entire life. And I had some good times back in the day, but nothing compared to the way I feel inside, the way I feel whole, the way I have a peace. There's a peace inside of me. And that I know is from these rooms. I can walk into a room anywhere, go on vacation and walk into a room, and it's AA, and they're my people, It's such a great feeling, working through all the steps. My biggest thing was, I always say, it's not just step one, it's 1, 2, 3. I do the 3-step, because whenever somebody's struggling, you have to get 1, 2, and 3, because you have to. Admitting it's one thing, but if you don't turn it over, you can admit it all day long, and nothing's going to happen until you turn it over. And 4 was big, and I was just speaking to somebody about this recently, about how sometimes we have issues with 4 and 8, and how could they be So how could somebody that hurt me on step 4, how could I have to do an amends for that? And it's not maybe necessarily you'd have to make an amends to that person, but you might have to make an amends to somebody else because of the way you acted, because of the way you reacted from what happened, from the time that you felt that you were wronged. And it's all about my reaction. So that's what I love about the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which is people, places, and things. Change the things I can, which is how I react to them. And I do react in a totally different way. And my basic way is, I'll be me. Me still comes out all the time. If somebody cuts in front of me in traffic, I am using every name in the book. And then I'll stop and I'll try to get my serenity on, which doesn't always work completely. But I'll just say, maybe that person's in a hurry. Let me say a prayer for them. And sometimes, when they say, just pray for somebody else that you're mad at, sometimes I'll roll my eyes and do it, and it's kind of fake doing it. And even doing that, it'll change me. And I've discovered that even just going, okay, I'm going to pray for them, and it really does, because I can actually start if you can empathize with another person, you could try to see that, maybe there's a reason they did that. Because, you know what, I was quite a jerk when I was younger, and especially when I was drinking. I literally had a big apology to my ex-husband because, boy, I could really be a jerk. And people forgave me, for the most part. And, now if I'm a jerk, I can practice step 10 and usually immediately, put my part in it and try to apologize, or even just try to set things right. That's not always the easiest thing to do, because sometimes somebody really will be bad to you, and you want to react the way you want to react, but we have to be better than that. Because I was talking to somebody last week. There was something that happened with a minor thing at work, something with the pay, that something didn't get paid right and anything, and it had gone and gone and gone. And I was starting to get a little testy about the whole thing, and then I just stopped. And I just got my gratitude on. I said, you know what? I got to be so grateful that, number one, I have a job to have this issue with. And number two, that I'm not living from paycheck to paycheck. So this little not getting the money immediately is not making a difference for me. Because, back in the day, sometimes I needed that money. I had a dealer on one end of the phone just waiting for the money to come through on the other end of the phone. And thank God I don't have to do that anymore. I really, every day of my life now, I do practice. I wake up every morning and I do say, thank you, Lord, for getting me through, for waking me up clean, sober, and healthy. Let me be a better person today than I was yesterday. And at the end of the day, I just say, thank you, God, for getting me through the day, clean, sober, and healthy. And I try to think of, go through issues that I had during the day that I might have to resolve the next day. And amazingly, I'm a lot better than I used to be. It seems to be the more I do that, the more I have my gratitude on, the more I try to empathize with somebody else, the less of a jerk I can be. It's amazing how that works like that. But, and I come to meetings, and I have a sponsor, I have sponsees, and I love helping a sponsee work on something like, work on the steps, especially when they get it. It's funny, sometimes when you work with a sponsee and all of a sudden you see them get it, and it's like this little light bulb goes on, and it's so cool. And not everybody gets it. Boy, I don't know how, I can't even think of, before I actually put any kind of time together. I mean, it was, I'd go to a meeting, and after the meeting, I'd stop at the party store and buy the booze. And, oh, that was a great meeting. That was for them people, but not for me. But eventually I had to get it. I had to wake up and I had to grow up. And I did. And I really believe that if I had not taken the path I had taken and become I hear people say that I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I used to say, no, how can you be grateful that you're an alcoholic? But I can honestly say I am, because if I had not gone through the trials, the bad things that I went through, I would not be the person that I am today. And I would not have some of the kindness. I would not be able to look at things the way I can look at them today. And it's absolutely amazing, because I will sometimes look at them and I'll just laugh at myself. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm actually thinking the correct way on this. But, if I had done everything the right way when I was younger, I would not be the same person I am today. So I am a grateful alcoholic. And thank you for asking me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you very much for sharing, Eileen. Again, my name is Deanna, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Deanna.
And I really appreciated your story. What I heard a lot in there was accountability, right? And for me, it's the word that sticks in my head the best when I think about getting sober is when I became accountable for myself is when I could actually change things, because it kind of like you were talking about that I could always be a really good victim and somehow make it everybody else's fault and never accountable for my actions and what I did or how I reacted to things. And like you said, all the people that were hurt, peripherally by what I did in response to maybe something that somebody did to me. And, like you said, and also when I learned to love myself, I could actually change things about it, because a lot about what you were talking about, I could really identify with that. It just never felt good enough, never felt, all the things, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, all the things. And when I could learn to love myself as to who I was, I could accept other people at where they were at. And, those were definitely some really tipping points in my sobriety and being able to work through the steps and being able to, just kind of get it and understand it. So I really appreciate your share, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
Hi, Lisa.
I got gratitude out of it. So, from the beginning to the end, gratitude, 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 gratitude. And, we all have this journey of, coming in here and trying to figure it out, right? Trying to figure out where do we fit, what do we do, how do we do it? And working the steps and then that peace that comes with that, the change, it's almost like a switch. Like literally, for me, it was almost like a switch where I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got 1, 2, and 3 right away. 4, on the other hand, I put away for a while and didn't think I needed to do that one. But the change happened because I was changing, right? And I was no longer going to a bar. I was no longer stopping at the package store. I was no longer hanging with the people I was hanging with. Everything changed. The day I came in here, everything, besides who I was married to, changed. And when you think about that, it just really, everything changed. And the people in AA kind of built me, gave me a coffee job. I didn't deserve a coffee job, but they gave me one. The key to the church, you got the key to the church. And you, I'm so glad you talked so much of the gratitude, because I have an anniversary, so I had an anniversary this month, and it always is a time where I reflect on where I came from. And so it's very fresh about still drinking and being so unhappy with myself and ready to drive into a bridge, if that's what it took, and then come in here, and I don't need to drive into a bridge today, and it's funny because we talk, both you and Jenna talked about self-love, but it's not that ego thing. Which is, I think sometimes, like when I was younger, if we talked self-love, I would be like, what egomaniac, and it's not. It's more about how we give, right? And so, which fills our cup. It's crazy. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Peter Alcoholic.
Hey, Peter.
So thank you for sharing with us. You talked about the step 10. And my alcohol is always with me. So sometimes it's like when we have to deal with people, places, and things. It's like step 10 is like I gotta pause, so I don't react to the old character defects. Even though, because sometimes I think it has got removal, but sometimes there's still a piece of them left that will rise to the surface if I'm not working on steps on a daily basis, And it's like, it's amazing that when I come in here and keep listening to how people share, I gotta take that with me, so when I go outside there, I can practice it with the people out there in the real world, But grateful to hear your story. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
My name is David Melvin.
Hey, David.
Thank you for sharing, Esther. Sorry about that, I just couldn't resist. Well, I like, when you're talking about you had normal parents, you had a relatively normal, how much?
3 minutes.
Okay. Upbringing, and that was my case. After being sober for a while, I finally realized that I was the alcoholic in the family. You know what I mean? And everybody had their peculiarities and everything, but I was definitely the nut job. I had alcoholic behaviors ever since I can remember, to be honest with you. And like we were saying about other people's expectations, I always had to live up to my expectations and who I wanted to be, and being perfect, and that was tough to do when you're imperfect, And coming into these rooms, it was probably the first time in my life that I ever had a grace period where I felt that I could develop on my own, without any pressure, with God's help, and and that's the way it's been. I follow the steps. Try to listen to people as much as I can. I love hearing people's stories and the gratitude that they have. Lisa was saying, we just had an anniversary. We're at this meeting in the Haven. It's kind of a free-for-all type of thing. And so we call people up from the floor. So like somebody, you with the silver shoes, you with the, So I got the silver fox. So now I had Snickers all over, So the first thing I hear is that, he'll never live this down, And I didn't care. I was just so proud and happy that you actually chose me to say something, And that's a nice feeling I have. That I'm just able to be pretty much just mellow amongst other alcoholics. And that's it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
American Alcoholic.
Hi, Eric.
Thanks so much for coming and speaking. And the gratitude, I really heard it, in your entire story. It's been a pleasure to get to know you. I've heard you before speak, but this was just a little different, which I love hearing somebody tell their story, but it's just just a completely different way. So, thanks again.
Thanks,
you.
Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Can we take a moment and thank Eileen for sharing her story with us again? And we'll end with the responsibility statement. I am responsible when anyone, anywhere, reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I am responsible.